Welcome to our Shield of the Sun video. This is Bruce Lee and the Martial Arts Part 12. So if you haven't watched the other videos, go back and watch them so you know where we're at. So one day, Brandon was having a real bad day in school, and he just went into a bipolar manic state, where everybody became the enemy to him except his close friends. Brandon then got into his car and drove up the hill of the school parking lot, and then proceeded to recklessly drive backwards down the hill, where his teenage peers were diving out of the way. The next day, Brandon was kicked out of Chadwick High School for insubordination. His mother was very upset at him. Brandon was sad to make his mother unhappy, but he secretly felt like he now was free. Soon Brandon found himself taking GED courses with other people who dropped out of high school or got kicked out. Brandon completed the courses and got his GED in 1983 at 18 years of age. During this time, Brandon really didn't know what he wanted to do with himself. He thought a lot about his father, and he missed him very much. He was being haunted by his possession and by fear, for he always struggled with being afraid all the time because of the spiritual presences that were near him, putting fear into his heart. He had this overwhelming need to be with his father that it was tormenting for him and also unhealthy. Often Brandon would indulge in drugs and drinking to quell these voices and the restlessness, for he hung out with a crowd of other troubled people with talent who also used drugs as a means of escape. Brandon, when he received his GED, discovered that he had a lot in common with his father. Brandon was an entertainer. He had a genuine gift to perform and inspire. He was funny and very likable, and he had wisdom and he understood artistic acting. He was also a ready-made man of action, for he was extensively trained in martial arts. Brandon could not see himself doing anything else except what his father did, and the door was wide open for him. One night he expressed to his mother his feelings about following in his father's steps, and that he intended on becoming a Hollywood star. Linda was not happy at all about what Brandon wanted to get into, but she loved him enough to hope for the best for him. Brandon decided that if he was going to try for Hollywood, that he did not want to be known just for being Bruce Lee's son who had martial arts skill. He wanted to become a real and gifted actor of a high order, like James Dean or Marlon Brando. Brandon liked Brando's style of acting very much, that he wanted to know how to learn how to act like that. Brandon then did his homework and learned at the Lee Strasberg Theater Acting School in New York City. This acting school was the main center for an art form of acting called method acting. The school did not just take in anybody, only specific people it took in after they auditioned. What few people realize is that they only took in people who had a natural gift for muse acting, and also they were demon-possessed. It was a school to learn how to get in touch with the inner demons inside you, or to get in touch with dark emotions from painful experiences, and use those disturbing emotions to energize your acting ability within the character you're playing. Demon-possessed persons were the top and legendary students of this school, like Dean and Brando, just to name a few, for the list is long, and now you can add Brandon Lee to that list. When Brandon came to New York City, his family took care of his expenses, and he auditioned to get into the prestigious school, where the Hollywood Baphomet seeks to also improve their actors and actresses by sending them to the school. Brandon's natural skill and his ability to channel emotions almost to a very creepy level won him the right to become a student, and he became a top student. By the time he was done, he was a highly trained method actor, and an even better actor than his father. Brandon's time in the Lee Strasberg School gave him numerous connections with Hollywood. As soon as first row came calling, almost out of odd fate. Brandon would play in a TV movie version of Kung Fu based on the series that his father got cheated out of. Brandon would play the long-lost son of David Carradine's character, in which the role reflected Brandon's true life, where he really was the son of a martial art legend. Other roles eventually followed, where Brandon found himself working in many different places. During this time, as a young inspiring star, Brandon became friends with a group of occult satanic actors who bounced around from LA to New York like Brandon did. This group consisted of Johnny Depp, Keanu Reeves, River Phoenix, and his brother Joaquin Phoenix, Alex Winter, Winona Ryder, Kiefer Sutherland, and several others. These actors, who later became household names, were also getting roles and struggling and striving to make it big. Brandon often partied with these actors, and he was part of their clique. They were into spirit worship and escaping reality into a life of drugs and sexual immorality, and many had also sold themselves to the Baphomet contract, and they were the ones who first told Brandon about the real Baphomet contract. Brandon, however, was confident in his ability, and he did not see a need to go through something like that. Brandon was offered a part in a Hong Kong movie where he would receive a lead role. The movie was called Legacy of Rage. This was the first time Brandon would be working as a lead actor for the Hong Kong studio, like his father, and he felt nostalgic about it. However, the demons of the past were waiting in the wings regarding the son of Bruce Lee. During the filming of the movie, Brandon got challenged by several martial art fighters looking to test Brandon and make a name for themselves. Brandon was not used to this, but he also did not have it in him to back away. Many times he had to fight to protect himself or to get them off of his back. Brandon actually won some of these nasty fights, while others ended quickly with Brandon as the winner. Brandon found out he was not just talented in acting, but he was more talented in martial arts than he realized, and it scared him in his heart, because unlike his father, he could not bear to live a life where he is being hounded for violent confrontations, for this affected Brandon's free spirit and peace-loving nature. Soon he had to have his father's former students as bodyguards, just to finish the movie, and every time he worked in Hong Kong, which wasn't much, he needed them to keep these awful men of pride off his back, often yelling at them to leave him alone. Brandon also got a TV role series based on his Kung Fu TV movie character that only saw 6 episodes before they dropped it, and he appeared in a classic international film in the lead role, in a film called Laser Mission that was only released in Europe. These roles helped Hollywood to see big money in a martial arts star who could act really well, and he was the son of a legend. Soon Satan came calling. Shortly afterwards, a company that made Bruce Lee's first American feature was now going to make his son Brandon Lee his first American feature. That company that Satanic Hollywood used to come for Brandon Lee was Warner Brothers Pictures. The film they offered Brandon Lee was an action film called Showdown in Little Tokyo, where they wanted Brandon to play an action film whose cop was Asian but acts completely American, while his partner, who's played by a mind-controlled actor named Dolph Lundgren, was to play a guy who was white but yet acts Asian. Brandon Lee's performance in the movie greatly showed off his acting ability and his physical martial arts skills. Both show to be in top performance, putting Brandon on another level over your average martial art Hollywood star. Brandon was genuinely funny and entertaining, and he was explosive in an action scene, as in opposed to other martial arts stars who tried to act or tried to be funny or tried to be dramatic, when at the end of the day they're only good at martial arts scenes. Brandon was very unique among them because he did not have to try to act, he could act, and he was an A-list martial art from the start, doing a B movie into which he was an A-list material from the start. Showdown in Little Tokyo did get featured on some small theaters, but mostly it was a straight-to-video movie whose rental sales and buyouts of the videotape did very well. The movie did have fans and it did make money, even though it had low exposure, and it was straight-to-video. Hollywood figured right that this had to be due to the fact people got curious to see the son of Bruce Lee in action, and they were impressed by him. Hollywood also liked the fact he was a trained, gifted actor, and they saw that a lot of money could be made regarding him. Showdown in Little Tokyo, I must admit that overall it was not a Christian film, but a film about killing your enemies, fornicating, secret societies involved in satanic operations, and 2 cops who had a high penchant for violence and martial arts. The film was about the glorification of violence, and it featured nudity and gave an overall feel of the worst kind of degenerate behavior. But in this time we call it an action classic. Go figure that out, and the answer is Satan has done his job far too well, and we are in the thick of it. America is a violent, sexually immoral, and degenerate society in all society levels, making us also the worst hypocrites in the world. Action films and martial art films and films featuring nudity and sex scenes are the evidence to that fact. We are not in love with stability, peace, tranquility, nor Jesus Christ. We are in love with domination and fear. We are blind to good, and it even claims the best of us like you, me, and even Brandon Lee.